Hello everyone, and now welcome to game number 3 in this series. And yes, StarShaped and LawLiet are all tied up. Game number 1 and game number 2 couldn't have been more different from heroes to styles, as LawLiet now opening up with the Priestess of the Moon and StarShaped also opening up with the Priestess of the Moon. Just now hitting the 2-minute 10-second mark as StarShaped quickly moves out with this Priestess of the Moon, getting in a little bit of extra damage and hoping to take down a Wisp. Nope, no Wisp kill, just a Wisp detonation. Meanwhile, Priestess of the Moon here opening up with an Archer, and actually the style seems much more familiar to, say, opening up against with a Demon Hunter. Also, surprisingly, LawLiet did not go for True Shot Aura. May have actually gone for Searing Arrow, but didn't really use Searing Arrow yet, even though that would have perhaps prevented a little bit of damage onto this Ancient of War. Alright, let's take a look at here. The Priestess of the Moon still sitting at level 1. LawLiet's Priestess of the Moon sitting at level 1, but much closer to level 2, as the damage already starting to add up a bit. Priestess of the Moon could have been using Searing Arrow, and that Searing Arrow would have been rather effective, forcing StarShaped to perhaps regenerate a bit more hit points back at those Moonwells. Alright, let's take a look back over here. Back up to 550 hit points for the main hero of LawLiet. Meanwhile, StarShaped down about 65 hit points, but nothing to be all too concerned about, as a Wisp now on the inside. LawLiet needs to try and escape and is going to go ahead and hide a Wisp in a forest. Doesn't really work, as you now see. Nope, LawLiet actually does go for True Shot Aura, but a little bit later than I would have liked to have seen. Could have crept out the map much more convincingly early on, as the Priestess of the Moon sitting at level 1, looking rather pleased with herself. Does have those Claws of Attack +6, so will win out in any one-on-one battles for the most part, as we're looking at both sides now teching the tier 2, I believe. Yes, both sides teching the tier 2 with relatively similar builds. Looking at how things are evolving and proceeding, you can see that the Priestess of the Moon wants to try and be aggressive here. 2 Huntresses, Dust of Appearance to try and pick off any archers that may be shadow melded, as we are now looking at LawLiet, this time quickly switching back over to this Glaive Thrower strategy. Glaive Thrower is very effective against these unarmored units, as you can see a bit of splash damage being dealt there. Meanwhile, Priestess of the Moon attempting to take down an Ancient of Wonders before it even gets up, and that is going to be a significant setback, as it is now down to, well, cancelled in order to be rebuilt. StarShaped already starting on his second Ancient of Wonders, pretty much already committed to the fight. StarShaped also looking to clear out this Murloc creep camp here. It's going to get taken out. Priestess of the Moon now running back here. Huntresses giving chase. And that is just absolutely looking like a very strong play. So far, though, the Priestess of the Moon still trying to put pressure on the inside of the base. And as long as perhaps there are some other units from LawLiet in order to get some experience, that would be the better play. Both LawLiet and StarShaped are relatively low on experience on their heroes, and that may just go from bad to worse here, as you can also see StarShaped picking up a Dark Ranger. Now, the Dark Ranger is a bit of a wild horse in this matchup, and one of the reasons why is the skeletal minions. Skeletal minions and melee units in general are extremely effective against siege because of that minimum attack circle that they need to get around. Skeletal minions that walk up and start attacking those siege units are in fact very, very annoying. You are forced to deal with them, as we're looking at the Glaive Throwers just bombarding the Berserker here. Once it is within range, you are forced to now back off and then try to engage again. Meanwhile, we are looking at the what is that? Yes, that is in fact the Priestess of the Moon, who actually goes for an Owl Scout, and the Owl Scout now overhead keeping track of everything. knowing where exactly LawLiet is. LawLiet will get to level 2 here. There you go. And the question will be whether or not he goes for a Owl Scout as well. It would not be surprising, however, to actually see Searing Arrow, since damage is so important in this matchup. Alright, Owl Scout once more gonna be tailing the opponent. LawLiet now gonna try and finish off this Ogre Mauler creep camp. Shouldn't have much of an issue. And what is this? The Dark Ranger of StarShaped, sitting at level 2 already. Meanwhile, the Priestess of the Moon almost level 3. That is actually going to be bad news, as the Priestess of the Moon here is still level 2. And I don't even know if there is a second hero coming in or on the books for LawLiet. Alright, oh, a Scout Owl able to keep track of a Sentry Ward there, quickly taken out. You can see more units now falling. Tome of Experience, don't leave behind a Tome of Experience. Dark Ranger going to go ahead and pick that up, as the Dark Ranger now inching closer to level 3 once more. Naga Sea Witch now finally on the field, as the Naga Sea Witch wants to try and pick off some of those slower units. And we are looking at, yes, the Priestess of the Moon getting in another quick kill there. Dark Ranger against the Naga Sea Witch, but the Dark Ranger does have a higher level overall, and there goes one Huntress. That Huntress actually fell extremely quickly, but what is this? Fairy Dragons now being used to counter. StarShaped picking up Fairy Dragons, and Fairy Dragons is a very interesting choice because the Fairy Dragons can easily go after those Glaive Throwers. Archers actually have a difficult time trying to focus down Fairy Dragons since they do phase shift. And once they are phase shift, it takes a little bit of time to just bring them back in. Alright, there goes a Glaive, and StarShaped, who was looking rather weak early on, now looking fairly strong, has 2 level 3 heroes compared to his opponent's level 3 and level 1. LawLiet now repairing this Glaive Thrower here. If you did not know, Glaive Throwers are one of the weakest of all the siege units, only sitting at 300 hit points. Now, you also know that those siege units cannot attack the Fairy Dragons, since they cannot attack air, and even the Archers have difficult time with them because of that phase. Alright, Boulder landing on this Priestess of the Moon. Now, the Priestess of the Moon is attempting to get away, may get intercepted, and yes, does get intercepted right here. Alright, one quick dead Fairy Dragon later, as the Fairy Dragons are going after all these units. Let's take a look. Is this going to be working, as the Dark Ranger now bringing up the rear alongside that Priestess of the Moon and a Skeletal Minion? Alright, once more, Owl being summoned to the skies in order to keep track of his opponent. The Owl could make its way straight off and find LawLiet. LawLiet will have to be extremely careful with those fragile Glaive Throwers. The Glaive Throwers do deal a lot of damage, but unless they are protected, they are not nearly as effective. Alright, you can take a look at this over here. The Scout still following the army. Meanwhile, off over here, the Archers and LawLiet making a bit of a push out, perhaps to try and engage the enemy. The Fairy Dragons are all right there, and LawLiet knows where exactly StarShaped is, and both of them just sitting in a little bit of a defensive posture, knowing that the one with the greater range, or in a battle like this, range is what matters, as the range can really dwindle down and hurt the numbers before they even get there.
A player's forces are under attack.
Rock Golem taking a fair bit of damage. You can see the Priest of the Moon tries to pick up an item, picks up a Boots of Quel'Thalas, now has plus 19 attack. That is absolutely ridiculous. Plus 19 attack, add in True Shot Aura. That damage number goes incredibly through the roof, and it could really turn the tide of the fight. So far, StarShaped is once more on retreat. You can see that there are a lot of Fairy Dragons in the air, and those Fairy Dragons could at any time start mana flaring if the need arose. Meanwhile, LawLiet now making his way off to the north, looking to regroup with his units. There's only 4 glaive throwers in this group, and it really feels like StarShaped has taken a bit of the lead. Let's take a look at the overall supply. It is 50 over 50 compared to 48 over 60. We are pretty much neck and neck, and it may come down to pure hero level as the Priestess of the Moon decides to pick up those gloves of haste for faster attack. Is she gonna do it? No, she did not. Wow. So perhaps the units attacked that particular item to destroy it so that the opponent could not get it either. All right. Once more, fairy dragons used to clear the way on all of those archers. There goes the machine gun fire, rapid fire, pretty much at attempting to take down so many of these units. All right, glaive thrower now taken down again. Dark Ranger sitting at 3. Keeper of the Grove sitting at 4. As all the units are now looking to back off again. Now, what are LawLiet's options at this point? He needs to choose an engagement and choose it well. He needs to figure out what's a place where his opponent should be and may be creeping. And down here, or even here, would have been a very, very strong choice. Instead, StarShaped is going to be going after the center island expansion, I guess center peninsula. No, I guess that could technically, but doesn't really feel like it. And we are now looking at the Naga Sea Witch attempting to perhaps roll on out and pick up a tavern hero. All right, there you have the engagement. There was a quick problem. All right, Naga Sea Witch taken out, and LawLiet really just lost a unit for no other reason other than to try and do a little bit of scouting, and this could be going from bad to worse. StarShaped taking a lot of damage. There it goes. StarShaped losing both of his primary heroes, and that is pretty much going to seal the deal as 2 level 4 heroes, soon to be level 5, shouldn't have any problem against all of this here. Let's take a look. What does the tabs... what does anything say? No, it doesn't show anything. Meanwhile, we are looking at the fairy dragons attempting to take down those hippogriffs. Hippogriffs and fairy dragons are fighting straight up, and the hippogriffs should be winning this war, but this is definitely not the case. The numbers of fairy dragons just still far too much to counter out the fairy dragons, even with their higher armor, and that may be a bit of a problem. All right, let's go. No, not going to be the case. 131 hit points on that fairy dragon. Priestess of the Moon now rolling out, going to be making a play up off to the north. LawLiet needs to get a lot more units in order to make anything happen. As you see, a lot of damage has been trained up. All right, let's take a look back down over here. Going after all of these units. Scroll of Healing quickly used to try and save some of those units. And this is potentially a game changer, as yes, those hawks are just absolutely destroying the entire base of LawLiet. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Hope you guys enjoyed it.